You are listening to the Julie Parker Practice Success Podcast, where you discover management insights and strategies for your successful dental practice. There are also interviews with key people in the industry who have advice and services to help you and your team achieve great success. Welcome to this week's episode of the Julie Parker Practice Success Podcast. And today's guest has got a company called Send Handwritten. And the founder of this company is a good buddy of my husband's, Greg Smith. And when he spoke about the kind of company that Send Handwritten is, I thought this is a wildly tremendous idea that dental practices can implement that will help them deepen their engagement with their dental patients. But on top of that, also allow them to systematize something that many dental practices want to do, and that is show how much they care when our patients actually lose a loved one. Some of these practices have had patients for many, many decades, and so we get quite close to those sort of patients, and so I'll speak more about that. But first of all, please welcome Greg Smith. How are you, Greg?
Very well, thank you, Julie. How are you today in chilly Melbourne, I'm sure?
I know, it's freezing cold. It was 6 degrees when I was walking the dog this morning, so it's ridiculously freezing cold. And you're up there in New South Wales. Is it warmer up there?
Yeah, look, we were on the beach this morning and there was a cold wind, but apart from that, it's God's own country here.
That's very good. So can you just tell me a bit of a history around Send Handwritten, what your history's been and what brought you to this company?
Great, thank you for the question. I'm actually an experiential educator by trade. So I've spent 25 years of my career working outdoors, mainly with young adults and some corporates. And so a typical day at work for me in those years was, a couple of hundred 16-year-old boys would turn up on a Monday morning, and in essence 10 days tripping by a foot or canoe or mountain bike or abseil or whatever was, there was a big white carrot with a steering wheel 10 days down the track somewhere. So I spent many years of my life outdoors. And the three questions that we were focused on helping young adults answer were, who am I and why am I here? What is life about? So that's that discernment process for young men and women is really important to answer that question. The second question that I spent, all of that career answering with them was, well, now that we're starting to explore who I am, then who are we? Now that we're a temporary community and we have a task to do together, and yes, it's an artificial task, the reality was that we had to eat and transport ourselves and keep morale up and deal with weather and up and down and night and day and hot and cold. So who are we when we deal with those sort of challenges, and what does that mean? And the third question that we would always work towards answering is, well, once we've got a sense of, or we've picked up the essence of who we are, what are we going to do with it? What is the impact that we would like to have as a group of young adults? Eventually, I sold that business to a large international not-for-profit, and I signed a 2-year contract, which became a 5-year contract. That organization, when I sold, was exceptional at getting unbelievable educational outcomes in that context, had unbelievably clever and dedicated young adult staff with training, to match the development of those young adults. Terrific gear, pristine budgets, a clever, well-managed governance is the word I want, system. However, they got one thing very badly wrong, in my opinion. And the piece that they got badly wrong was customer experience. And I won't dig into the silly mistakes, in my opinion, that they made, but if you forget to care for your client, you will lose them. So my assertion is that caring is profitable, and if you can figure out a way in your day-to-day operations, if you can figure out a way to express your care of an individual or the fact that they matter to you, then already you are standing out in the sea of sameness.
Oh, I love that. Goodness me, there's like 3 podcast episodes and all of that.
So here's the metaphor, Julie, and I'll finish on this because it sort of brings that piece to a close, because this is then the birth of Send Handwritten. If you walk to or go to the Gold Coast Airport, which I can almost see from here, and you walk to one end of the tarmac, you will get in a budget airline aircraft, and let's say it's an A320. You sit in the seat on that aircraft and look at your ticket and it says passenger. To get to that seat, you will have been efficiently processed and cleverly transacted with minimum human interaction, because that is efficient. However, and you'll get to your destination safely, because that's how modern aircraft are designed. If you go to the other end of the tarmac at the Gold Coast Airport, and you get in a different A320, but it happens to have a Singapore Airlines insignia on the tail, you sit in your seat and you look at your ticket and it says guest. You'll be given a drink before takeoff, a hot towel before takeoff. And, I could go on and build that metaphor. The point of the example is that the A320 is the same machinery, doesn't matter which end of the airport you go to, but the customer experience of using that machinery is very different. And yes, there is a different price point. So my assertion is that if we're in the marketplace doing what we're good at with our machinery, we get a choice to be the budget and relatively transactional and perhaps dismissive, or we get the opportunity to Velcro the human beings that we actually want to care for to whatever it is that we're doing. And that's a choice.
I love that term, Velcro them. That's deep engagement. That's sticky engagement.
Yeah, and of course Velcro works because there's multiple touch points that build that connection.
Oh, what a beautiful metaphor. I'm gonna be stating your name very often in my future as I relay that metaphor and where it was inspired from. That's just tremendous. You're absolutely right. There is a story that I've written about in the past, in a past blog. Years ago, there was a dental practice on the Mornington Peninsula that opened up. My mum lives up that area down here in Victoria, and I thought, I'll just pop on in just to see. I've heard wonderful things about the internal decoration of this particular practice, and I drove in, and sure enough, the car park was all very lovely but pretty standard. The gardens were very nice, but again pretty standard. But pretty standard ended when I walked through the doors. When I walked through the doors of this dental practice into the waiting room, the floorboards were like a deep rustic wood. They sounded magnificent when I walked in. They've got these big, beautiful Afghan rugs on the floor. And rather than having couches and seats in the waiting rooms up against the walls, there were like coffee-style tables, a few of them with 2 seats per table. And then running up the side against the window that looked out into the car park was an iPad station, a whole series of iPads fixed to the bench with stools so the kids could sit there and entertain themselves while they were waiting to go through to the practice, into the surgery. They had fresh flowers and fresh plants. You could smell the aromatics in the air. The music was chosen beautifully, lovely, calm, relaxing, but didn't set you off to sleep. It was just a very pleasant experience. And the coffee machine wasn't a standard coffee machine. It was like this, industrial sized coffee machine, and this huge array of teas, some jugged water with pieces of lemon and orange slices in it with ice. Oh, it was just amazing. And as I was observing all of these different elements, my enthusiasm, I could physically feel it rising up. And I was thinking, I've never been in a waiting room like this before. And then I looked to the side, and that was the reception area. There was a space for 2 receptionists, and indeed 2 receptionists were sitting at their computers beside the reception area, which was again absolutely beautiful, very rustic looking. And across the front was this long chalkboard, blackboard, where staff members had written beautiful quotes and flowers around smiles and bringing beauty into your life through your smile, etc. And I was the only one in this space, so I could just absorb all this beauty around me. And I glanced at the two receptionists, who neither of them were on the phone. Neither of them seemed to be doing anything other than just ignoring me. And I thought, I wonder how long it will take them to recognise that I'm here, because I've been in here for a number of seconds now observing all this wonderment. And as they continued to avoid my eye contact, I then felt this physical drop in my enthusiasm. And it was at that point that I learned you can spend all you like on the equipment, on the appearance, on making the facade look terribly appealing. But if you don't get that care element right, you've lost the game completely.
Yep. So I've just co-authored a book with a number of us, and it's called How to Be a 6-Star Business. So imagine a 5-star hotel, but imagine then what it would take to be 6-star. What's the extra element? And what you just described sounds very 5-star to me. The stuff is pristine. What makes something actually 5-star and then potentially 6-star is the humanity that gets invested, the emotional labor that gets invested into that, in the case that you just shared, into that beautiful space. If that beautiful space is devoid of human contact, anticipation, recognition, remembering of names, all of those more soft, if you like, engagement points, then you're a gong bashing in a hurricane and nobody can hear you.
I love the way you speak. It's making a gong bashing in a hurricane.
Yeah, there is actually another phrase, but I'm not going to use it right at the moment, or you will debar me. Somebody will pull my teeth out.
I ban from the show.
I can be politically incorrect, don't worry.
And so that's a really good thing for practice owners and managers and employees out there to acknowledge, that we try to encourage a professional environment and have very professional relationships with our patients, but we never want to step away from that directive of, we want you to care. And we don't just want you to care about the patients, we want you to care about each other. And in the dental industry, we're like many industries at the moment, but it's been going a lot for longer than COVID for dental, where the pool of potential employees is getting smaller and smaller all the time. And so this constant striving to get skilled workers into your organisation is there, but what can sometimes be missed is employ the characteristic which you cannot teach and you cannot motivate, but it needs to be there in essence, and that is employ caring souls, people who care about other people.
Yes, and the funny thing about that is that when we employ those individuals, we still need them to be skilled, efficient, professional, and it's a little bit like for me it's a little bit like a twitch. Like a twitch, things happen almost simultaneously, but there's a little disconnect. So is it care first and then be professional, or is it be professional and then care? But the longer that gap, or it's in that gap, that we actually get to show up the way that I think our patients, our clients, our guests are looking for us to show up. And it's with empathy, it's with appreciation. I call it the Ubuntu effect.
Oh, I like that. Ubuntu, that's right.
Yeah, so, and Ubuntu simply means, Julie, today I am more because you are in my world, and I appreciate the fact that we've got this opportunity to have a chat.
Oh, ditto, Ubuntu to you as well, Greg. I've scribbled down on my piece of paper for you that you can see a whole bunch of things already. So, as I say, there's a couple of meaty podcasts in that, and I might get you back on again to talk about your experiences with kids and those key questions of who am I, why are we here, who are we as a group, because this, dental practice teams are about this all the time, who am I, but also who are we, and then what are we going to do with that. But while we're in that space of engagement, caring towards patients, I want to talk about how Send Handwritten can really help in that process. But first of all, can you tell us what Send Handwritten does? How did it come about?
So when I left the employee of the we'll call them a company that bought my baby, as it were, what I watched them do from the sidelines was to shoot my baby in the back of the head and let it die in the gutter.
Oh,
and of course, that initially that had quite an emotional charge for me, and I'm quite fine. I don't need to lie down on your couch and for you to look after me. But what it meant was that from the observation of seeing everything done so well except that customer experience piece, and I watched the deterioration of a good business to death, I started a consultancy called the Masters of Client Retention to answer one question: how do you Velcro your existing client, patient, guest, member, whatever the right language is for your industry, to what it is that you are so very good at doing? What came out of that very quickly was that my early clients started saying to me, Greg, you know what? We're actually really good at patient, client, customer retention. And as my eyes rolled, the next question was, great, so what is it that you really want help with? And it was always lead generation. How can you get us more patients? How, Greg, with the tools that you've got in your kit bag, how can you get us more customers, more guests, more members, whatever it was? And so over a period of a couple of years, what percolated to the surface was clarity around the fact that the quietest channel to market, whether it's lead generation, client retention, or client-patient referral, the quietest channel to market where the tumbleweeds are rolling around is the physical mail, the post box, which is out in front of everybody's house or in front of everybody's business, and nobody is using that channel to market very effectively. On the flip side, it turns out that there are digital marketers, and God love digital marketers. I've got nothing against that group of people, but they are piled 20 high on every street corner on the planet. How do you choose? If you're going to engage in digital marketing, and Send Handwritten certainly is also engaged in that space, you've got to shout. Whereas you can whisper if you use a relatively unused channel and still be heard. So what Send Handwritten have become very clear about is that our job in the marketplace is not to send cards. We are not a card company. We are not even a marketing company. Our position in the market is to help our clients get the attention that they and their sales team deserve. And I hate the military metaphor is, but if you like, we're an attention-seeking missile. We want to interrupt attention with wow, disruptive, attention-seeking, and I'm an extrovert, I'm good at attention-seeking, but attention-seeking techniques that often have a humorous edge to them. So, what we do day to day are a number of things. And Julie, if we've got 2 minutes, I'll share with you the model, because that might help people.
Love a good model. Go.
So imagine the 6-star hotel that I just referred to. Ground floor. Julie, you're going to be welcomed through the revolving door by our butler at the front door to the concierge desk is where you'll be nurtured to. There are 5 rooms on the ground floor that our concierge team will welcome you to one by one. First of all, your strategy room. What is your strategy, Julie? Let's work that through. Is it client retention, lead gen, client referral? What is it that you're up to? And we'll get the avatar very, very clear. The second room on the ground floor that we'll nurture you into is the creative space. So what is this card imagery going to look like? What is the scripting going to look like? How are we going to design this piece of work for you that's going to interrupt attention? And I know that your listeners can't see this, but I'm holding up an envelope we did for the YMCA. There's a map of their their school campsite on the outside of the envelope. It's beautifully wax sealed with their logo embossed into the seal. And then inside there we put the envelope's about the size of a CD cover. Inside we put a round card the size of a CD. It's got a compass printed on the front. Nice handwritten message with some imagery, and all branded to the YMCA. And the opening copy in there, and this was a lost sheep campaign, bringing people back to the YMCA. It was, "Hi Julie, I've just sent you a map and compass to help you find your way back to the YMCA. Where the bloody hell are you?"
I love it. That's great.
A $4,000 investment from the YMCA bought them $700,000 of new work.
Wow.
It took a few months.
Pudding.
Yeah. So digital marketing didn't work, telemarketing didn't work, email campaigns didn't work, but that got the attention of decision makers in schools. So we're still in that creative room. Now we come out of there once, somebody has signed off on their creative solution. Third room on the ground floor, you're not welcome into. You look through the glass window on the door, and in there you'll see printing of cards and envelopes. You'll see the handwriting team. Real, physical, live, blood and bone human beings are sitting there all day, every day, writing on your behalf so that you don't get writer's cramp. They do. Then we wax seal, and then we ship to all corners of the planet each Friday night. Scotland, Calgary in Canada, LA for the US, Wellington, New Zealand, and Brisbane for Australia. Now, we go other places, but that's essentially what happens. So the production room is the third room. The fourth room of 5 on the ground floor is the data curation room. So if you are, an accountant, and you want the attention of construction companies in Southeast Queensland, our data team will put that data together for you. Names, addresses, phone numbers, LinkedIn profiles, etc. And we do that piece of work for some clients just as a standalone service. The fifth room of 5 on the ground floor is the call. That's where the call team hang out. And we make the distinction that they are not telemarketers. They do 2 things for our clients. One is they make pre-calls. So the pre-call is designed to verify the data, that the address is correct and it's the right person and they're not working at home because of COVID and all of that stuff. Secondly, it's to make a connection, build rapport with the gatekeeper usually, or the prospect themselves, and to set the expectation that something's coming in the mail and that there will be another phone call in a few weeks' time. The post call, and that's literally after the post has landed, we get on the phone again, and the script is always, "Hi Julie, I'm wondering if you could help me please." And we don't call it dinner time.
Unlike many marketing people, that's right.
And they are either Aussies or New Zealanders or Brits. I've got one American on the team as well, and we call from the Western world somewhere. Now, we can call from anywhere, and what that means is that the price point is a little bit higher, but we don't have to deal with all of those assumptions and presumptions that are made when a person who is an English second language speaker gets on the phone. Now, yes, we can be accused of all sorts of things by making that decision, but it works. And I've got nothing against English second language speakers. They are all over my team. But for that task, that's our preference.
Fantastic.
Out of that, so that's the ground floor. Please get in the lift with me. Let's pull the handle. We'll go to the next floor. These are much quicker. We have what we call the DigiCard suite. So we help our clients show up with handwritten, hand-drawn, voiced-over pieces that go out via text, LinkedIn, email, and they are stunning. We have Morgan Freeman on the team. Voiceover. So they are spectacular, they are often hilarious, and they work. Why? Because our job is to get and disrupt attention. It works. We want to start conversations or help our clients start conversations. So lots to share there. Let's go to the next floor. It's what we call our LinkedIn Concierge Suite. Business people, and I know dentists are largely B to C, so I won't hang on this level for long, but it's about helping our clients show up where there's 830 million other business people, which is LinkedIn, and we do that super, super professionally. And there's a bunch of services in there. And Julie, this is the level for you and I. Let's get back in the lift. We go to the next level up. This is the business process suite, where you and I have a cocktail and we figure out what we're going to do first, second, and third together to get the attention of whoever it is you want to get the attention of.
That is fantastic. Man, what a lovely tour you've just taken me on. I felt like a little bit like in the chocolate factory with Willy Wonka, going through all the different things. That's where my mind went.
Oh, I can be wonky, all right. There's no doubt about that.
Well, this is just a tremendous thing. So when you and I first spoke, and when Charles said, you really got to speak to Greg Smith about the Send Handwritten business and what it can mean for dental practices, initially we were talking about systematising very nicely when a loved one of a patient or a patient themselves, when they sadly pass away, and you've got other members of that family as patients in your practice. Quite often, it's been my experience, I've worked in many, many practices in the past, and with many practices in the past, that whenever you get a gap in the schedule, you send maybe the receptionist out to quickly go get a card, a sympathy card. Everyone's tries to figure out what are we going to write and who should be writing it, and then someone has to go off and post it as well. And often it has been the case where that task just doesn't get done or followed through on because all those little steps took a couple of days and now it's a little bit too late to send it out. And so that was one of the many ways that Send Handwritten can truly assist dental practices in systematising something that they truly want to do. They truly care. And this is the thing with dental practices out there, dentists and their dental team members, they truly care about their patients, and this is a lovely way of making sure that caring element is passed on, that you are showing your sympathies for that family during the time.
Yeah, and so what we've done is we have, I used to have a great phrase around this, it's just gone out of my head, but we've systematized connection in meaningful and authentic ways. And the way it works is very simple. If you were to lose a patient, either because they've got sick and they've left, or they've moved house, or they've passed away, you jump onto our website, you type in your 50 or so words of condolence, you put their name, their address, choose a card, hit send, we get the order, we write it, we wax seal it, we hand address it, we put it in the post, done deal. It would take only the time that it takes to choose a card and write your 50 words of message to make that happen. There are no shops or post offices or stamps to find, or any of that work needs to be done. We do all of that for you. So for the dental practice, there is one time-consuming task that has now left the desk of that poor old, not necessarily old, but that poor bloke that's sitting on reception trying to get all of that work done, as well as his or her day job.
Yeah, that's right. And you are systematising it so your intentions are rolled out as a dental practice, which is to make sure that the intention is to make sure that family know that person, that loved one, is missed and meant something to your team and your practice. While you were talking about my tour around Send Handwritten, other areas came into my mind as well, because I didn't realise that you also did follow up pre and post telephone calls as well, LinkedIn, all these other avenues where you can deepen an engagement. Because when we're talking about some of the groups which I'll mention, some of them are easier to engage with, others are quite difficult to engage because it's a re-engagement process. For some reason they have disengaged after being engaged, and trying to re-engage people after that can be quite a challenge. And so a 3-step strategy makes perfect sense for some of these things that I'll mention. One of them being the inactive patient base of a practice. So a lot of consultants will talk about the thousands, the hundreds of thousands of dollars that's left sitting there in advised treatment that never got booked in for whatever reason. And maybe one of those reasons is because the patient's don't see the value in it, or they've actually relocated and going to a different practice now. And so that re-engagement process really hit home to me as a way that Send Handwritten could truly help with, especially when you showed that YMCA. And I will put a bit of video footage on our YouTube version of the podcast so everyone can see that card, because it's just fantastic. The envelope itself, as Greg said, it's like it's taken over Melways. It's a map that's folded up. It's got that wax seal on it, but the card inside is the round shape of a compass with a fantastic and humorous message on the inside. So developing with your creative team a tremendously re-engaging content for the inactive patient basis, I think is a tremendous way of doing it, because otherwise what you find you're doing as a dental practice manager and owner is you're in essence saying to the patient, we know that you disengage from us, but nothing's really changed, so I'm just imploring you to come back again. And people need more than that. As you say, we need to interrupt. I mean, how many marketing messages are people getting every day? Ridiculously high numbers of marketing messages, and we need to do things differently. We need to whisper instead of shout, because everyone's shouting. Yes. So I love that analogy as well.
So Julie, why would, sorry to interrupt your thinking there, but why, I know the answer for me, why do people avoid going for that treatment that they know it's time for, or that is overdue, or that would help them long term? Or is there a core 1, 2 or 3 reasons in the dental world why people will do that?
Sometimes it's cost.
Yes.
That they just simply can't afford it, or they don't want to delegate some of their dollars to that. Sometimes it's anxiety, like I just can't physically move through those sort of appointment times. I've got a phobia about the dentist. Sometimes it could even be, if it's a newer type of patient, they might be doubting what the diagnosis is, because my previous dentist never said I needed anything, but now this new guy says I need a whole bunch of stuff. So it could be doubting things. But also what I usually come back to, because I think it addresses each one of these things, is if that patient truly understood the ramifications of not treating an oral condition that's causing harm over a period of time, and if they were facilitated with payment plans, and this is how you schedule, these are the things that we can do to help calm you down during the treatment, then I think they would get a whole lot more booking in for these sort of treatments. I think sometimes patients leave a little bit confused about the treatment options, but also about, are there any ramifications for me not getting anything done because I'm feeling okay at the moment?
And certainly for me, it's fear. I have no logical reason to be fearful of a dentist. I've not had anything terrible. I've had unpleasantness, but nothing terrible has happened. So whatever that illogic fear is, my question for the dental industry is, and it's a question, I don't know the answer, but is humour a way of cutting through that level of anxiety? And this is not a dental example, but I'm holding a card in my hand now. This is an envelope with a couple of upside down cockatoos on it, and they've got a nut on each head. And it's the front of the envelope simply says, we're flipping the bird. We're flipping the bird to last year. Now, this is not a recommendation. I'm playing here. That's the back of the envelope. It's a piece that we did for ourselves. That's the front of the card. The cockatoos appear again. We're flipping the bird to last year. There's a couple of crazy guys, me and my business partner, on the back with a nice handwritten message on the inside.
Yeah, and these messages are all handwritten. None of this is printed. This is all handwritten stuff, isn't it?
That's right. So, we're flipping the bird to last year. I sent that as a re-engagement piece in the middle of 2020. Middle of 2021, to 130 or 40 of my clients. Now, we did it at cost because it's our business. That turned into approximately $70,000 of work, and I wasn't selling anything. I was simply saying, hi Julie, it would be remiss of me not to check in and make sure that you and your business are okay in this, big C poop fight that we're enduring at the moment. Is there anything I can do to help? I had one past client ring me, and he was still laughing his head off with that. And he said, Greg, you are a total idiot. Yes, let's do another campaign. And here's the interesting thing. We did a campaign for him to, right in the middle of COVID. He's a real estate agent. That's the front of his card.
So it's got a turtle swimming through the ocean on one side.
with a crazy eye, and the quip on here is we're keeping an eye on your property, and that's the envelope, and all beautifully designed.
Oh, good.
And he told me a little while ago that total $3,000 investment is now worth over $300,000 to him.
Gosh.
How would you like a poker machine that you put $3,000 in one end and you get $300,000 out the other?
And I tell you what, practices would love to have a more successful system for their reactivation of their inactive patients, because notoriously you get very slow take-up on that.
Right.
Sometimes they use different types of discounts, but it doesn't always send the right message or appeal to the right elements of patients when you're using discount messages and things like that. But I think it's worthwhile really understanding the value of the physical thing coming through the mail. But then you layer on top of that great rapport building, humour, really connecting with people. That's tremendous. I mean, to give the dental practice people out there a bit of a feel, when we can be forgiven for going to email as a regular space when we're sending out recall letters or incomplete treatment letters, or trying to tell people about the new whitening process that we've got available at the practice. But the fact is that the open rate for emails when they're not expected is very low, somewhere between 10 and 13%, very low. So you have to imagine that with all those emails, overwhelmingly most of them are not even being opened. The ones that are being opened, they may be closed and binned pretty swiftly after that as well. Oh, it's not a bill from the dentist, it's something that I really need to read, I'm just going to bin that straight away. To get engagement in email is a really tricky process. SMS is fantastic. That's got a much higher open rate, something like 95 to 98% within a first number of minutes of receiving an SMS. Massive opening rate, but very transient. It's in and out of your mind instantly. And you know it's in and out of your mind instantly when someone rings you, you get a text message that you've got a missed call from this person, and you think, oh yeah, I'll get back to that later. And then you receive another few text messages, and out of sight, out of mind, you do not ring that person back because you've completely forgotten about it. But what we're talking about with physical mail is something that has a very high open rate, but also a very deep engagement. It leaves a stronger impression on our brain. And when you're adding into that humour and rapport, you're giving the patient an experience, not just the physicality of the card, but an experience as well. It's shifting the way they feel in that moment. That's enormous.
Yes, exactly right. And can't remember his Chris Voss, senior trainer of FBI hostage negotiators.
Oh, yeah.
Has a lovely statistic that I've chosen to take out of context, but it works for me. And the statistic is that we are 31% smarter when we use a sense of humour. In his context, he was clear with all of that training, with all of that experience, that outcomes were 31% of the time were better when the hostage taker was engaged with some humour, with some levity, with some humanity, rather than with a carefully scripted piece of negotiation script. So humour, metaphorically, allows us to stick our pinky toe in somebody's door to begin a conversation. And that's all that any of us as entrepreneurs, as healers, as medicos, that's all any of us want to do. We want to have that impact that we get out of bed and that we've trained for each day.
Yeah.
So conversation starting with humour actually works. Not all the time, and you have to be very careful, but, in the dental world, this is an audience of dentists, but imagine the shape of cards and the equivalent dad jokes that we could use to interrupt attention. Like, they are endless, but getting the message to dentists is like pulling teeth, like ha ha ha, and on we go. Here's another little sample. This guy builds toilet blocks that are prefabbed in public spaces. That's his photo. His card was the shape of a dunny, an Aussie dunny. I can assure you he has made millions of dollars off the back of that campaign to procurement officers in local councils. And what does he do? He builds dunnies. He interrupted the attention of procurement officers that hide deep, deep in the labyrinths of local councils, and we got their attention.
That's just tremendous. What a lovely insight that humour humour is likability. The minute that you feel cross or angry, forcing yourself to smile shifts your physiology enough that you can start shifting your perspective around things. I think you're really being very effective in influencing us into understanding the power of humour. That's wonderful. I love it, because I'm just thinking back to times where people have made me laugh. They're instantly likeable to me. And I think when we're trying to interrupt through all of the other noise that's going on and truly engage people, this is a tremendous way to go. Another group that I think would be very useful to work with, and I've got a practice in mind. They've recently opened up another location, and it's a start from scratch practice, and they've got a few rooms there. And this is the enormous challenge when you have started up a brand new dental practice and you've come into an area. You are going to be losing money from day one until you get enough patients moving through on a daily basis that you can start to break even. How long is that time going to be? Who knows? Am I going to go out of business before that time is up? Who knows? And so you've got to do everything you can to try to build out a community awareness of know, like, and trust as quickly as possible. And so I would imagine when we are talking about the usual go-to places, digital media, SEO, advertising, all of those sort of online spaces for promoting your practice. When you're talking about a local community, we don't need to appeal to people 3 suburbs away, the next state away, which is what all the online stuff does. We just need to communicate with the people in our very immediate area. And doing that through these sort of humorous, pattern interrupt, engaging, caring cards is a tremendous way to go.
Imagine, Julie, I've never had this thought before, but this is why I love my job. Imagine if we ended up with a tooth-shaped door hanger made of cardboard with a handwritten message on the back that said, "I've got this close to you. If I'm your dentist, I'm going to be way closer than this. What say we have a chat?" Like, imagine that in a place, in a suburb where a new practice is starting up. Now, that's not a prescription for a creative. It's how do we start the conversation and dig in and do something that nobody in that suburb would be expecting. That's the game.
Fantastic. A final group that I wanted to mention, so all the practices out there can get excited by how Send Handwritten can really help them, is I talk about that there are 3 categories of patients in every practice. There's the transients, such as the emergencies. You may only see them once. They're not particularly loyal to your practice. They don't go back on a regular basis for checkups and cleans. But if they have a toothache or a broken tooth that's causing them discomfort, immediate discomfort, they will go along to the dentist. If they have discomfort again 2 years down the track, they'll call you first, possibly. If you can't help them out with a good time for them, that's okay. I'll just call the next person down the road. So I call them the transient group. The loyal group are those that will only ever come to you. So they will come to you for all of their emergency care. They'll come to you randomly for checkups and cleans. They're not in the routine of doing it every 6 or 12 months. They may do it every 4, 5, 6 years, but they'll only ever come to you. They trust you guys and they consider themselves very loyal because they don't go to any other dental practice. And then you've got the perpetual patients. The perpetual patients are just like the loyals, but they're different in that they do come every 6 or 12 months for their recalls. That's just part of how they maintain their own systemic health. They come for their dental checkups. And I talk to dental practices when I work with them that even though we see everyone and we welcome everyone, we want to be focusing the customer experience, and you were talking about the customer experience in your previous business and how important that was. We want to cater a customer experience that really does appeal to the loyals and perpetuals, because they're the ones that keep returning to us over and over again, spending all of their dental dollars just with us. So what can we do, especially for the perpetuals? What can we do for the perpetuals to really treat them differently to any other patient in the practice. And it's always been my suggestion to send out loyalty. So it's been 5 years that you've been a patient with us. Let me tell you how much we love having you as a patient. Thank you so very much for continuing to trust your oral care with us. It's a delight to see you, and it's a delight to treat your family as well. And this is a space where I believe these cards are going to be, they're handwritten. They've got a wax seal on the back. It is a special communication.
Yeah, and I think you're onto something, Julie, because if my dentist asked me, and I'm a perpetual, if my dentist asked me to once a year refer them to 2 other people that I know could benefit from their service, I'd do that in a heartbeat, but they've never bothered to ask.
That's so good.
Yeah.
That's very good. That's very good. We generally ask all patients, can all of you refer people? But if you got a card in the mail saying, it's been 5 years since you've been a patient here and we've loved having you, and we would so love being able to extend this service out to other people that you care about as well.
Yeah. Look, and you've asked a question around being creative. Okay, so this is not Send Handwritten's idea. I heard this from a client this morning and he had magnificent success, but this is the sort of craziness that we get up to. So a white card, normal size, approximately 5-inch by 7-inch card, with only a handwritten phone number on the front panel of the card. This guy is in America, and he simply randomly wrote the phone number of Delta Airlines on the front of the white card. He, on the inside of the card, put a $1 bill and signed it, Damon. Sent 20 of them as an experiment, because by sending $100 packages to his prospects that were worth about $100 each, he got 0 new leads. He sent this to 20 people that he did know, and he got a 100% response rate. And what happened upon receipt of a white card with no explanation was everybody rang that 1-800 number and couldn't figure out why it was Delta Airlines, and was there a free trip? Was there some airline reward in there? Like, what was this about? They tried to link the serial number of the dollar bill to the phone number, and that made no sense at all until the sender put the recipients out of their misery and called them and said, did you get something from me recently? And every single case created a mushroom of energy and conversation and hilarity around the fact that all he wanted to do was to begin a conversation, which he did do with the recipients. Now, I'm not recommending that in the dental industry in Australia. What I'm recommending is that however you decide to engage, keep it simple, keep it clever, keep it engaging, designed to start a conversation. You triggered me to think about...
That's wonderful.
You triggered me a moment ago to think about what works or what could be offered in that loyalty generation space. Here's a lesson that I got. If you're a lady, I've got no hair, I'm bald, right? But basically I'm bald. But here's the example. If you walk down the street and you see a sandwich board outside a hairdresser and it says 10% off haircuts, and a haircut, and all of the added benefits of that, blow dries and washes, and I don't understand that game, but let's say it says 10% off. Straight away you do a calculation and you will think, $10, that's just a couple of coffees. Nah, I'll just keep going. However, if that sandwich board said a pair of free movie tickets for a haircut, straight away there's something different about this. You're going to think, in your case, that sounds nice. Charles might buy me dinner and then take me to the movies, and then we'll have a nice night with no interruptions, and we'll actually get to talk to each other, and no business people will be around me to interrupt, me spending nice time with Charles. All of that happens...
You know my life well.
All of that happens subliminally. The 10% discount for many of us is just irrelevant. It's a manipulation. But 2 free movie tickets... And it turns out when you go, okay, I'll bite, you go in and you've actually got to do the sums, but you've got to do 10 haircuts with that hairdresser to get you 2 free movie tickets, or whatever it is. That's a way of adding romance, possibility, connection, appreciation, whatever it is, into the process of having a haircut. Same thing in the dental game.
Yeah.
Whatever it is that you're thinking about offering, a discount is beige, it's boring, and in my opinion, it is relatively a yawn. Find some other way.
Yeah, and that is a great example of indicating that you're selling a completely different outcome. You're not selling a haircut anymore. You're selling that dinner, that connection with a loved one. And I think this is where, when we're talking about appealing to people who may have become inactive, or appealing to people who have had advised dental treatment, don't think it's going to be compelling enough just to say the outcome's going to be a filling or the outcome's going to be a crown. It didn't appeal to them the first time. Why would it appeal to them the second time? The outcome is peace of mind. You're avoiding the risk of future breakdown, the future toothache, etc., and improved function. So maybe really thinking about, with these sort of campaigns that you're talking about, shifting your focus from an outcome which is very short term and just in the moment to a broader outcome.
Yeah, and if we go back to the example that I gave in the airline industry, all dentists fly A320s. Otherwise, they'll be debarred.
Yeah.
So what's the defining factor? It's the engagement, it's the fun, it's the loyalty, it's the other possibility of connection and appreciation and good health that gets injected into that. Exactly how you do it, it's horses for courses, and it depends on a whole bunch of realities around that practice.
Yeah.
I don't have a magic wand. What's exciting is, once you get creative, all sorts of fun things are possible. Not to be fun. The fun things are possible because caring is profitable, and dental practices want to grow their patient base. It's this, what's the word? Synergistic is not the word that I'm looking for, but it's a self-perpetuating upward cycle.
Nice. I love it. I absolutely love it. And I love thinking of all the different avenues where this can be enormously helpful. And if people are struggling, like, that's just not where my creative brain takes me. That's the problem I have. I don't have great ideas around these sort of things. Your team can certainly help.
Oh, yes. Yeah. And that's our gift. There's another card here on my desk, and it's got a yak on the front of it. We sent it for an accountant. And the opening copy in that piece of work, and yes, it is here. The opening copy in this is, "Hi, Julie. I hope you don't mind my old school approach. I'd love to have a yak with you."
I love it.
Now, this guy invested in 100 cards a month with us for 12 months. He's an accountant, right? He wanted to grow his practice. At the end of 2 months, he rang me and he said, "Greg, we have a problem." And of course, I went white hot. I went, "Oh my goodness, what?" He said, "You blew my business up." I said, "How so?" And he said, "I'm $1.4 million up after 2 months working with you. I need more staff."
Wow.
And I went, "Great. Brendan, do you need to delay month 3? And he said, "No, I want you to rip up the contract," which was a 12-month contract of 100 cards a month, data, cards, calls, all the bells and whistles. And I said, "I beg your pardon, you want me to rip it up?" He said, "I want a 3-year contract. I'm going to sack my business. I'm going to sack my business development manager, who I'm paying 80 grand a year to. I'm going to pay you, in round figures, 20 grand a year. And if you can make me 70 grand a month, why wouldn't I do that?" Which is, that's the metronome that we've got going for him. Yeah. There is no reason why we couldn't be doing that for dental practices as well. It's so
just worth a shot. It's so worth a shot. It's so difficult to get into that marketing space and understand, as a dental practice owner, when you've got messages coming from here, there and everywhere, use us, this is effective, no, this is effective. It's just so difficult to make a decision around it. Getting back to what has been proven in the past and is currently being proven within your business of what's possible, this is so worth a really good shot.
And Julie, there is no way on God's earth that I'm going to make a promise about an outcome. My fear of the marketing space or the advertising space is that if you get promised a result in this climate that we're living in at the moment, my recommendation is run 1,000,000 miles. My recommendation as an alternative to a guarantee is run a pilot. Test and measure. Don't bet the farm on, some crazy long-term investment.
Yeah.
Test it, measure it. And our recommendation is, depending on the context, but our recommendation is try 300 of these, 50 a month for 6 months, 100 a month for 3 months, 300 in one batch. Let's get the data really clean. Let's get the scripting very clever. Let's get the creative, either hilarious or intriguing or engaging, whatever the right fit is for the practice. And let's test and measure. If you get one new perpetual out of 300 cards, you've paid for your campaign, I would imagine.
You're absolutely right. A perpetual patient, especially a perpetual patient that actually refers friends and family, is worth well over $100,000 to any dental practice. So just a perpetual patient who doesn't refer anything has a value, when I've done averages with other dental practices that I've worked in, of $74,000. So a lifetime value of a perpetual patient being $74,000, you want as many of them as humanly possible in your patient base. And this is a tremendous way of trying to appeal to them.
So you would not need to invest anywhere near that in the work that we're up to per month at 100 cards a month, data, cards, calls, digi-cards. Imagine if the yak shows up in the mail, but the yak also shows up via a text, and then it shows up again, and then it shows up in an email, and then it shows up in a second email, and then there's an email or a text goes out that says, thanks for having a yak with us. Now your smile is so much better. Like, whatever it is. So, Julie, here's a question. Tell me what you got for your 9th birthday.
My 9th birthday, I have no idea.
Exactly. Very few of us do. I get some clever people, and they say, yeah, I got a such and such. And I go, great. But Julie, can you remember those early years of birthdays? And what do you remember of those early years of birthdays? And it's the pool and the family and the cousins and the ice cream and the cake and the craziness and the running and the jumping and all that sort of stuff that we love as kids. We remember the energy or the essence of that, not the stuff.
That's for sure.
The question for my clients is, are your clients going to remember the stuff of your business? Or are they going to remember your humanity, your warmth, your care, your sense of humour, your desire to go the extra step? Here's something that happens for me and why I'm Velcroed to my dental practice. I had some work done. There was a crown and it went a bit messy and blah, 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 blah. I had a call 2 days after the treatment, 5 days after the treatment, and 2 weeks after the treatment, just to make sure. The question was, Greg, it's Rosemary here. I'm assuming everything's okay. Are you really all right after, what was done? Those 3 phone calls, which would have cost the practice $1.50, they Velcroed me to that practice for however long I live in this area.
For sure.
Imagine if they'd gone the extra step and said, something physical in the mail with something fun attached to it. And it's like the Velcro. The Velcro effect is multiple, tiny touch points all create inseparability. You cannot pull Velcro apart if you try and pull it apart in a linear way. Yeah. The only way you can pull it apart is by prizing it apart. You would have to prize me away.
One hook at a time.
Yeah, and you can't prize me away from my dental practice now because I'm a scaredy cat when it comes to dentists, and I know that Rafa looks after me. That's his name.
Oh, it's just magnificent. I do love that Velcro thing. It's going to be sticking in my brain for a long time. You've given me a lot of things that I'm going to be thinking and talking about in days and weeks and years to come. That is just tremendous. So if practices out there are thinking of the ways that we've been discussing and their own unique ideas about how Send Handwritten can help them, what's their best next step?
Well, I would love to have a conversation with any marketing person inside a practice, any practice owner or dentist. And I'm not, what I'm not interested in, Julie, is trying to convince anybody that this will work. Because in reality, I don't know until we try it. I, as the CEO of Send Handwritten, if you like, the genius behind this and the energy behind this, we only need 100 clients. We're halfway there. Yeah. So I'm looking for my tribe, those human beings that want to lean into this, that get the power of being a good human being and showing up in clever, engaging, warm ways in that channel where the tumbleweeds exist. I ain't trying to sell this to anybody. I'm looking to wrap our arms around our tribe and say, right, let's go build this for your practice together.
I love it. And if there are dental practices out there that start receiving cards from Julie Parker Practice Success with wax seals on the back, you know exactly what's happening.
and to get in touch with me, I think
you in.
I think you are asking me the question, how do people get in touch with me? Our website, sendhandwritten.com.au, or give me a ring, interrupt me, make a dad joke, and you'll get my attention in a heartbeat.
That is fantastic. All of your links are in the show notes, and so if anybody out there would like to tap into this, just have a conversation at the start, just to have a bit of get an experience of Greg and what he thinks could be possible, then certainly click on the links in the show notes and you'll be taken straight through to his contact details. Greg, I want to thank you so very much. This has been such a wonderful conversation. I really enjoyed myself.
Yeah, my pleasure, Julie. It was fun.
If you enjoyed today's podcast, then you should come along and join the club. The club is a whole library of lunch and learns with new lunch and learns being produced all the time that help your dental team gain greater success in your systems, in your team behaviours, in your patient management, in your patient engagement, in their treatment plans. They are usually around half an hour in length, and so team members can sit down, be paid for their lunch break, eat lunch while they're being inspired, and delivered all of these insights and strategies that can be implemented so you all achieve greater levels of success. Also, Amina and I, my buddy from Dental Management Expertise, have a company, Dental Business Mastery, together. And our flagship online 1-year course for dental practice managers and dental practice owners to learn how to very successfully manage your dental practice is available. Head over to dentalbusinessmastery.com.au to find out more information, and has information about any other courses that we've got available. Also, make sure you do jump onto my website, julieparkerpracticesuccess.com.au, and you will see a whole load of free information. There are articles, the blog, downloads, templates, a whole load of things that are designed to help you overcome any specific challenge that you've got going on in your practice at the moment. If you have any suggestions of topics or guests that I can have on the podcast, please let me know. Thanks for listening.